extend that to 1 year is also sensible in terms of longer term advice that they would then require, because we also want, SEBI also wants morely, long, trying to have a long-term equity exposure, long-term investments rather than short-term speculative activities. Another proposal in that light is also, again, ease of compliance thing. We had actually taken a board decision earlier on December 18, 2024, in which SEBI Merchant Bankers Regulations 1992, SEBI Debenture Trustee Regulations 1993, and SEBI Custodians Regulation 1996 were sought to be amended. And there was one issue which related to creating a separate legal entity in case we have, they are taking up some unregulated activity, which means an activity which is not regulated by either of the regulators, maybe any of the regulators, either SEBI or RBI or any other regulator. Then in that case, we needed to, we required them to hive off in next 2 years into a separate entity. Of course, we had given certain dispensation in terms of sharing of resources, etc. However, we have taken an internal review and we feel that the alternative approaches may be possible in order to mitigate the risk, at the same time creating ease of doing business for them. So therefore, it has been decided that we will come back again to the board for a revised proposal. Till that time, we will not operate the earlier decision which was done, which was taken on December 18, 2024. So then we have, these are basically the ease of compliance and ease of business measures. There is one measure relating to governance. And this provision is relating to appointment of public interest directors, cooling off period for key management personnel and directors, and the appointment process for specific KMPs in market infrastructure institutions. So, based on the feedback received from various stakeholders regarding appointment of PIDs on the governing board of MIs without the approval of the shareholders, the process for appointment of PID were reviewed. Similarly, this cooling off period issue was, reviewed. Governance of MIs, the various KMPs, their issues were reviewed. And after the review, the board has taken the following decisions. One, the existing process for appointment of PIDs, which requires prior approval of SEBI, but does not mandate shareholder approval, shall continue. Second, if the governing board of an MII decides not to reappoint an existing PID after his or her first term, it must record the rationale for this decision and communicate it to SEBI. Third, cooling off period for KMPs and directors of MIIs moving to competing MIIs. For that, the governing board of an MII may prescribe a minimum cooling period for its KMPs and directors, including managing director and PIDs, before joining a competing MII. SEBI will no longer prescribe a cooling off period for PIDs transitioning from one MII to another. So far as the process for appointment of specific KMPs in MIIs, the appointment, reappointment or termination of specific KMPs, which includes compliance officer, chief risk officer, chief technology officer and chief information security officers, namely CEO, CRIO, CTO, and CISO, by whatever designation called in Vertical 1, which belongs to critical operations, and Vertical 2, which belongs to regulatory, compliance, risk management, and investor grievances side, shall require approval of the managing board of the MIIs, which was hitherto with the nomination and remuneration committee of the MII. So therefore, it's being upgraded that instead of only the NRC, it has to be through the governing board of the MIIs. And a process is also being prescribed through a selection process, which then MII has to appoint an independent selection committee, which will then report to NRC, and then the NRC makes recommendations to the governing board. So therefore, that process is getting strengthened for all these 4 category of officers. This was on the governance side. And now I think the issue on SEBI governance itself. So the day I had joined, I had mentioned that we'll come up with our plan, how we will handle the conflict of interest and other issues. So today the board has decided to constitute a high-level committee to undertake a comprehensive review of the provisions relating to conflict of interest, disclosures pertaining to property, investments, liabilities, etc., and related matters in respect of members, that includes the chairman and officials of the board. As you know, there is a code of conduct of 2008 in respect of members of the board, including chairman. And there is also ESR, Employee Service Regulations 2001 for the employees. There are issues related to conflict of interest. There are also issues relating to disclosures, also property, investments, liabilities, how it is to be reported. So the high-level committee needs to be constituted away from SEBI, an independent committee. The SEBI will provide the secretariat help. Best practices will be studied. HLC will comprise of eminent persons and experts with relevant background and experience in constitutional, statutory, regulatory bodies, government, public sector, private sector, and academia. The names of HLC members will be announced in due course. The objective of the HLC is to comprehensively review and make recommendations for enhancing the existing framework for managing conflict of interest, disclosures, and related matters towards ensuring the high standards of transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct of members and officials of the board. The HLC is expected to submit its recommendations within 3 months from the date of constitution, which shall be placed before the board for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will, just a humble request, we are meeting sir for the first time. I'm sure everyone wants to ask a lot of questions. A small request, let's start with one question each. And if you don't mind, we can also introduce ourselves. Thank you so much. Please, let's just go around the line. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ankur Mishra from ET Now. Thank you, sir, for giving the opportunity. And since it's your first conference after you have taken over, so I would want to start with a broader question. You have mentioned about FPI's ease of doing business, conflict of interest too came in this board meeting. What is your larger message to the stakeholders, if you can start with that?
I think there is no larger message except that we have a very robust institution, and we'll carry it forward in terms of, the best outcomes that we can have. We have 3 mandates in SEBI. One is investor protection. Secondly, we have to develop the market. And third, we have to regulate it. Now, all these mandates, is a very big task that we have. And I think with the team that we have, which I find very, very robust team, and which is another team, several teams which are outside with whom we work very intensively, we can always, create the best of the framework in order to meet our mandate.
So, just one quick thing,
Really,
ma'am.
I'm really sorry.
Sir, Rajesh from Money Control. Sir, my first question is, you said here that you have taken back this approval of this hiring of merchant bankers and other businesses. So what is the reason behind that?
No, what we are saying is that if there is an alternative approaches exist in order to ease the business, we will explore that. Is because everything what we do has a certain cost. So we have to, if the risk can be mitigated otherwise, then we will explore those things as well. Hiving of entities would mean that you have to create new, is a certain cost which you have to incur. So whether we can do it, and secondly, there is also an issue of level playing field. Like, for example, what in that proposal was that, maybe the banks which are regulated by the RBI, there the hiving off will not be done. The banks which are not regulated by the RBI, their hiving will be done. In some respects, it's a non-playing field also. So I think we have to be a little more nuanced and clear on whenever we are doing regulatory changes. Going forward, our effort would be to have, we do have consultative mechanism, but we will also be more mindful of, whether we are unnecessarily creating a burden, extra burden on the industry, if we can achieve the same objective otherwise. Right? It's the way, so effective regulation and optimum regulation is our goal.
Good evening, sir. This is Sajid here from NDTV Profit. Can you give us a change in the policy framework in which SEBI will now be operating? What I mean to say is that, you used to set up a committee, then a discussion paper used to come out, and then, you used to create industry standards board, they will recommend something, and then a policy used to come out through a discussion paper, and then it goes to the board. Now that you have gone back on the merchant banking thing, because it went through the same process, is there a change in the way policy will be framed in SEBI going forward?
It will not be changed. In fact, same is a very robust process. SEBI has, I think, one of the best processes around when we have a consultation papers, we have public comments, we have a committee, and it has gone through all that thing. But it's a question of again taking a measured thing. When the committees are there, maybe a little bit of a more pressure of time. Sometimes they can, because it's a question of also a time for deliberation. Now, if suppose something comes to this thing that whether there is a possibility of doing this, so why not do it? So in that case, before we really actually issue the regulation, it is better to take a little bit of more time and just refine it before it is issued.
You're saying currently is not the case?
No, it is the case. As I said that, there is in particular cases, if we have this, that, certain decisions will requires a review, we may take a review.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for doing this. This is Yash Jain from CNBC TV 18. One clarification and one question. As far as the clarification is concerned, you've said SEBI will not be the authority to decide the cooling off period when it comes to transitioning of PIDs between exchanges. Is it fair to assume that if one exchange says there is no cooling off period at all that is required, you would be all right with that? The question is, when you're taken over also, you had spoken about how, along with domestic investors, FPIs are also very, very crucial for the Indian markets with respect to the capital that they bring in. One step has been taken with respect to, the disclosure norms being relaxed for them. What more are you looking at? Is it largely on the policy side? Is it on the taxation side, or something away from both these points that you're looking at to make Indian markets more, friendly for foreign portfolio investors also to find them attractive here? Thank you.
I think you have asked two questions, two very different questions, but I'll take it. The first question relating to, this cooling off thing. Now, cooling off thing, what we found is that you don't have any cooling off requirements for MDs, for example, or the KMPs. But we have imposed a cooling off for PIDs. Now, public interest directors are very important people, and they are, as I said, SEBI's also eyes and ears, so to say, protecting, and therefore we are exempting the shareholder approval on that. Because I think some of these organizations, the shareholders could be, presumably, suppose they may also move from a business motive. But here the PIDs have no such, because they're not even approved by the shareholders. So we should not make it difficult for the PIDs to move, because PIDs also are not necessarily in a very big supply. So right now, we have no, sort of restriction sometimes for the other ones, MD, KMPs, but restriction only for PIDs. We just wanted to make it uniform. PIDs are in no way, one PID, in fact, if it moves from one MI to another, it's welcome, because it's from one MIA also, he's actually bringing in investor protection from one and to taking investor protection to another MII. So to that extent, I think nothing will be lost, really.
On the question?
Yeah, on FPIs, as I said, that FPIs have to really decide where they want to go for what return. And I think things change and they can decide. What we will say is that we are providing, the kind of regulations, etc., which will really facilitate. We are in no way wanting to, sort of scare anybody away or things like that. And we are willing to engage as much as we are willing to engage with all domestic capital as well. So, engaging with people with capital and making markets, strong, that is also, one of the goals SEBI has.
Hi sir, this is Yatin Mota from CNBC Awaz. Sir, speculation के matter पे पूछना चाहूँगा. When you talk about speculation in the derivative markets, exchanges have been recently changing days of expiry to probably compete with each other. There is one of the exchanges which has recently got capitalized, looking to again come with the future and option framework. So on the matter of speculation, what is the regulatory stance? Would these frequent changes in day of expiry taken into cognizance by the regulator? And in the matter of the cash segment, Bhatia sir has done a commendable job to shell companies, wherein we have seen orders from the regulator, wherein market capitalizations were manipulated, wherein sales were zero, promote holding was zero. And there is still a lot of these shell companies in the marketplace. So, in the matter of investigation, is SEBI looking at further, clamping down on such, shell companies, because enforcement agencies have taken this order, and had a raid on certain premises in Ahmedabad. So both on the derivative side and the capital market side, how are you really looking at the speculation part, which has been increasing day by day?
Well, I'll just reply this thing briefly, and will ask my colleagues also to supplement. First of all, futures market F&O is important for us. It's important for any market because, so it's not something which is, it's required for hedging, it's required for market making, for price discovery. What we have really been saying is that when we had a problem with index options on expiry day. I think that was a huge problem because it was coming on a single day and with this thing. And then we also had this issue of, how do we really measure our exposure, where I think certain, nuanced position is required. So a certain steps were taken for a while. And then we have also put out a paper, and on which we have received some 800 suggestions, and we are fully engaged with various things. And incidentally, there is a detailed discussion with market participants and the relevant people in SEBI while drafting that paper as well. So I would like to ask Mr. Anant Narayan to further elaborate on that.
So I think you've covered it well, sir. Just to reiterate, derivatives are important. Speculation is important for market depth, for price discovery, for hedging, etc. The actions that we took in October last year were specifically directed, as Sir said, to tackle the issue of over-trading in index options on expiry day, and that remains the objective for SEBI. Now, in respect of this point about expiry days across exchanges, etc., without going into too much details, I'll just reiterate the objective of SEBI. What we said is we will allow each exchange to have one expiry, a weekly expiry, right? And right now we have 2 days of the week, which we think is comfortable. That is a regulatory intent. Second regulatory intent is derivatives are important, they are extremely important, but they exist for a purpose for supporting capital formation. So without having a robust cash market, having a derivative markets does not make sense. So that's again a very clear regulatory intent. Now, in terms of what are we doing with the ongoing issues, we will take it up with the relevant parties and do what is required in a consultative manner, in a manner which makes sense to everybody.
On the issue of corporate frauds, and particularly where false information is provided, obviously we will really won't hesitate to take stringent action. And the action has been taken and will be taken, and we will also systemically improve. I think we are finding out methods to systemically improve that such such false disclosures are discovered very, very early. Of course, as you are aware that on materiality of information, we had earlier given a detailed thing so that we don't exactly know what to really report and when to report and how much. I think certain clarity was required, and our previous circular provided that clarification. But